Hey, and welcome to this lesson where we're going to use the geometric concepts we've learned and algebra to solve problems. The essential question of the lesson: how can we use the properties of angles formed by transversals to solve algebraic problems? By the end of the lesson, you should be able to use what you know about the relationship of intersecting lines and the angles formed when lines are cut by a transversal, and what you know about algebra to solve problems. First, let's review what we've learned from this previous pod about if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal. We know that vertical angles are congruent, and just a key reminder here, they are congruent all the time, not only when two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, but vertical angles are always congruent. We also know that corresponding angles are congruent, alternate interior angles are congruent, alternate exterior angles are congruent, and that consecutive interior angles are supplementary, which means that adding both of those two angles together gives us 180 degrees. So let's practice. So we're given these two angles, and they're written as algebraic expressions. We have 9y plus 7 for one angle, and 2y plus 98 for the other angle. Now, if we were asked to find y, how could we do that? Give yourself a second, pause the video, see if you can solve the problem, and then press play when you're ready to go. Alright, so what do we know about vertical angles? Well, we know that vertical angles are congruent, so therefore their measures are equal. Now, using that information, we can set the two angles equal to each other and form an algebraic expression. So, we know that one angle is 9y plus 7, and we know that that's going to equal the other angle, which is 2y plus 98. Now, if we subtract 7 from both sides, we get 9y equals 2y plus 91. Now we can subtract 2y from both sides, and we get 7y equals 21. Sorry, I made a little mistake. Not 21, equals 91. Now if we divide both sides by 7, 91 divided by 7 is 13, so we get y equals 13. Now, if you're ever unsure about your answer, one thing you can do, substitute it back into both of those angles. You should get the same number by solving both of those expressions. For example, if we do 9 times 13 plus 7, what do we get? If you said 124, that is correct. Now, 2 times 13 plus 7, we should get 124. So 2 times 13 is 26. Alright, sorry, messed up again, not 7, but 98. That's the second expression. So 26 plus 98 gives us 124. Therefore, we know that y is equal to 13. That is our answer. Now, when we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, we know that the corresponding angles are congruent. So I have two parallel lines here. We're going to assume that they are parallel. So you could really have two types of questions here. You could be given that the lines are parallel, therefore you know that these are congruent, these two angles. Or you could be asked to find the x value that makes the two lines parallel, and that would mean that both of these angles would have to be congruent. Either way, if we're solving for x and we know that they're parallel, we're going to put the two expressions equal to each other. So 2x plus 100 equals 5x plus 55. And if we were trying to prove that the lines were parallel, we would do the same thing, because if the lines were parallel, or the lines wouldn't be parallel unless those two angles were congruent. So their measures must be the same. So now if I solve for x, I'm going to subtract 55 from both sides. And I get 2x plus 45 equals 5x. Now I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And I get 45 equals 3x. 45 divided by 3 is 15. So therefore, x equals 15. Again, if I substitute my answer back into the two expressions, they should be the same angle measurement. So 2 times 15 plus 100. 2 times 15 is 30, plus 100 is 130. Up here, 5 times 15 plus 55. 5 times 15 is 75 plus 55, which when you add them together you get 130. The same logic for corresponding angles you can use for alternate interior angles. So for this problem, 3x plus 16 equals 5x minus 54. I'm going to add 54 to both sides. I get 3x plus 70 equals 5x. Going to subtract 3x from both sides. And I get 70 equals 2x. 70 divided by 2 is 35. So we get x equals 35. If I substitute x back in to both of the expressions to check to make sure my answer is correct, both of those angles should be equal in measurement. So if I substitute 3 into this angle, I get 3 times 35 plus 16, which will give me 121 degrees. If I substitute it into this angle on the left, 5 times 35 minus 54, I get 175 minus 54, which equals 121 degrees. Again, I can use the same logic from the last two examples. Set the two alternate exterior angles equal to each other. I get 3y plus 53 equals 7y minus 55. Subtract 3y from both sides and add 55 to both sides. I'm going to end up with the expression 108 equals 4y. Divide the right side by 4, divide the left side by 4. 108 divided by 4 is 27. And again, to check your answer, you substitute that into both of the angles and they should be the same measurement. And last but not least, we have consecutive interior angles. Now, instead of setting these equal to each other, because consecutive interior angles are not congruent when the two lines are parallel, they are supplementary. Therefore, we have to add them together, and it should give us a sum of 180 degrees if those two lines are parallel. So, we take 2x plus 43, and we add 2x minus 3 to it. And all of that should equal 180 degrees. Now on the right side, we need to combine like terms. So 2x plus 2x gives us 4x. 43 minus 3 gives us 40. And all of that is going to equal 180 degrees. Now, if I subtract 40 from both sides, we can start to isolate x. So we get 4x equals 140. Divide both sides by 4. And you will get x equals 35. And again, we substitute that into these two expressions. They won't be equal this time because they're consecutive interior angles, but their sum should be 180 degrees. That's all for this lesson. Hope you reached the lesson of objectives. If you didn't, please go back, review the lesson, listen to it a second time, take better notes, take notes if you haven't already. If you're still lost, come to live class where we can talk about it more. Ask us questions. We want to help you where you're confused. If you're still confused after that, come to Math Cafe. We're in there every day. Just come reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you learn this even more.